Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia has been thrilling riders since 2006, and while not being very old, especially compared to the other B&M hypers, you wouldn't think that if you'd ridden it. I'm just going to straight up say that Goliath has not aged well, and while I don't really blame the maintenance for it, because Goliath is a very intense ride, but they do probably play a role a little bit on why it aged so poorly. With its big drops, intense helix, and ejector finale, it's no surprise that it's gotten such a strong rattle in some parts of it, especially because most of the older B&M hypers are more gentle and graceful. Goliath is absolutely not like that, or at least the last 2/3 aren't. The beginning is very reminiscent of a B&M hyper. It's once you hit that helix, but anyway, Goliath tries to tear you apart again in the last 2/3. The ending of Goliath is very similar to how Air Force One's ending is, with how it launches you up and down so abruptly. It's just Air Force One is more rapid fire, but still, it's very similar. Goliath's reliability has also been very poor lately. It's not uncommon for it to break down at least like twice in your day. My point is, it's no wonder why Goliath is aging so poorly. And this really has me wondering how much longer it has before something happens to it. And in this video, I'll go over the different routes that Six Flags may go with this ride on what to do with it. The first option for Six Flags is to just remove it. And I just don't see that happening. Goliath is the headlining coaster at Six Flags and is arguably the best. And that's also saying a lot because Over Georgia is one of the strongest lineups in the country. So removing their most popular and possibly best roller coaster would just be dumb, and no park would ever do that. Well, except King's Dominion, but they're special. Anyway, I just really don't see Six Flags removing it. The price to remove it and then build another star coaster would probably cost more than it would be just to keep it around. And besides, Goliath has kind of become an icon in the Atlanta area. Goliath is the first coaster you see driving up to the park, and I really don't think that they'd want to get rid of that. Besides, 90% of the ride is located over water, pathways, or roads, so entirely removing it would be a pain and would cost even more than just a normal coaster removal. Also, do you really think that if Six Flags did remove Goliath, would they give it a replacement anytime soon, and would it be a worthy replacement? All a Goliath removal would do is give Over Georgia bad publicity, disappoint basically the entire city, give Funspot another point, and be expensive. Also, Goliath is a capacity monster. Sorry, now I sound like the Six Flags marketing. Great. Okay, Goliath is almost always running 2 trains, or at least it was last year, and while it usually doesn't have a line, or at least the kind of line that a ride like Mindbender would have, it still is the most popular ride by far. With the big trains and simple restraints, Goliath always manages to have a short wait while also being the most popular ride at the same time. When you add all these factors in, I highly doubt that Six Flags will remove Goliath, and I think that they will keep it running as long as they possibly can, because there's simply no other replacement that could do everything that Goliath does that is also in Six Flags' budget. Another option is a RETRACK by B&M. Recently, we've started seeing older B&M coasters get full retracks because they've reached the end of their service lives. However, Hulk and Nemesis are not at Six Flags parks. Universal and Alton Towers both have loads of money. Universal is the park that builds the world's most expensive coaster, which triples the previous record, by the way, then builds another mega project in Velocicoaster, which I believe costs another $50 to $75 million in a span of 2 years, right smack dab in the middle of a global pandemic, all while also building another massive park right down the road. Meanwhile, Six Flags isn't willing to build coasters with original layouts. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't, and they've recently shown that they would step up to the occasion if they needed to spend big bucks, and Salim doesn't look to be changing that. Now, that still begs the question, would Six Flags be willing to pay for a Goliath retrack? It depends. I think that it would most definitely reset the coaster clock, and would also be probably a bigger investment than Six Flags would like, if it cost around, let's say, $13 million, which is right around the top of Six Flags' budget, and Six Flags would only spend that kind of money at their favorite parks, and it still even wouldn't be that often. But could I see Over Georgia get that kind of investment? Yes, only because of all of the pros I mentioned earlier. Also, Over Georgia is one of Six Flags' favored parks. It's not the very favorite, but I'd put it around maybe the second tier of parks in the chain. However, there's one thing I did skip over in the previous part. The fact that spending $13 million on a retrack of an existing coaster will not bring back as many guests as spending $13 million on a brand new coaster altogether. And that's why parks build new rides, to bring guests back. So if we did see a full retrack, I could definitely see maybe a retheme and most definitely a repaint. If we saw a retheme, I think it would be cool if we saw something like Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. Maybe they could reroute the queue to go into the warehouse that's next to Goliath that's used for Fright Fest and use it as a pre-show for the rethemed Goliath. Just hopefully not to a DC theme, but I'm probably getting ahead of myself. Another option is a partial retrack. Since a full retrack is quite expensive, I could see many parks opting to just retrack parts of the ride that need it. For Goliath, I could see the first 3 valleys being a priority since the first drop, first, second, and third camelbacks, and the entrance into the helix are all pretty much glass smooth, and I could just see them leaving that track in place, also because I'm sure that those portions of track are a lot more expensive to replace because they are the highest points of the ride. The lift hill, brake run, and station track could also stay in place because they definitely don't need replacing, and Nemesis is also keeping these portions of its track, so I could definitely see these portions of track staying on Goliath and future rides. In the end, I think that the most likely option is to do a partial retrack because it is significantly cheaper, it would only fix the parts that actually need fixing, and it could also still be giving us a repaint and possibly a retheme. So what do you think will happen to Goliath? Do you think that it will just stay the way it is, or do you think it will be retracked or maybe even removed? You can state your thoughts on that in the comments below. And also, if you're new, this is not the usual kind of video I do, like other than like production quality. Usually they're a lot more high quality, so go check out some other videos if you'd like to, because this one was definitely more rushed. So anyway, thank you for watching the video. Please make sure to like this video if you'd like to see more stuff like this. Subscribe to the channel because it just really helps me out. And please make sure to have a thrilling rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.